for joining us wherever you are in the world. It's sunny 9 o'clock in the morning here in Australia. I'm joined by my colleague from Microsoft, Bobby, and really happy to both be here. My name is Tim. I'm from the CluedIn team, and today we've got a pretty good show for everyone. You're probably here because you either work in the retail space or in the consumer goods space, but the truth is a lot of the things we're showing off here today actually is relevant across lots of different industries. It turns out that Bobby and I seem to focus, at least share a couple of customers in the consumer goods and retail space, and we've seen this theme arise where it really seems like AI is going to and is already fundamentally accelerating a lot of data management practices that, historically, they were tedious things to actually solve and work on. And we're going to show off some of those things and capabilities today. Bobby's going to kick us off today by giving us a little bit of a view into, how does Microsoft think about this space? How do they think about AI? What types of services and offerings do they have? And so, Bobby, over to you to kick us off. I will put myself on mute and looking forward to the show.
Excellent, Tim. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, everyone, for having me. So, yeah, right now we have retail customers embarking on bold, exciting AI projects. So it's a great time to be able to share insights with you, being able to help other retailers, because we want to see, great wins coming from you as well, shaping the future of the retail experience in Australia and New Zealand. So the number one question we get asked by companies is, what's everyone else doing? Everyone seems to be very curious and looking at their neighbor for some direction, because there's a lot of developments happening and you want to make the most of what's coming with AI. So for some people, it seems like a difficult topic that they're not sure about and they don't know how to use it or where to get started. For others, they perceive the benefits and the wins that will come from leveraging AI as part of the retail experience, and they want to know where they can best channel their efforts for results. So my goal today is to share information with you, give you some practical steps you can take to maximize the value and competitiveness of your business with data and AI. Okay, so with the ramp up of AI, it's created this inflection point for retail. And you've probably had your news feeds flooded with information about AI. You're getting asked about it a lot, or your board has suddenly become intensely interested in AI and asking you, what are we doing about it? What's our AI strategy, which we've heard from a few of our customers. And AI itself has been around for a good while. But with the emergence of large language models, it's now ubiquitous and becoming a part of the way we work and how consumers shop. So when I think about the power of AI for retailers, I think of people like my sister. She's working in the fashion industry, and in any given week, she might be dealing with supplier challenges where inventory can fluctuate by $500,000 or more. That has to be balanced against what's being featured online, what's going out to stores, and at the same time, she's dealing with challenges around design and content creation for her customers. So for AI and thinking about how we can use it to solve some of these challenges that we have, it's really important to separate reality from the hype, what's real, and we take a look at the role of AI as a tool in your retail toolbox. And determine how to extract the most value from it. So if you have a look at what Microsoft is doing in the AI space, you'll see that what we're doing is we're focusing on leveraging AI to improve productivity across all of our product lines and experiences and better enable people. So you might have noticed a small explosion at Microsoft in the Copilot space, right? It's everywhere. Ideally, what we want it to be is a way to take away that manual effort from you so that you can reinvest that time in more productive tasks. So think about things like running your Teams meetings. You want to be able to automatically summarize what happened in that in the meeting, and then have those action points to take away from that, right? Or think about things like your coding efforts to query data. Let's automate some of that code creation so it's much faster for your developers. Or if you're an analyst, you want to make your time to insights faster, being able to share those in reports and dashboards, so that then when you socialize those, the business can make more timely and well-informed decisions, right? That's what we're trying to do from a Microsoft perspective. But what does it mean for our retail customers, especially when retail is facing a lot of challenges and disruptions and broad changes in the industry? So what we're seeing is there is a continued criticality of digital as a channel in the customer purchase journey. And we're also seeing technology fueling a more connected global retail economy. And as retailers, we're doing that in a context where talent's in very high demand and it's difficult to find the right people for our brand. And there's also challenges around things like security and broad changes in privacy and compliance. So this is where we see the role of AI enter. We want it to be able to provide us with capabilities to improve on the customer experience and bring efficiency and productivity wins to retail. And this brings us to 5 areas where we can really crush with AI. And we're seeing retailers do this now. So this is something you can think about for your business. First of all, being able to pass huge amounts of unstructured data for insights and being able to find patterns for growth. So this is about integrating and processing your data and being able to include things you couldn't include before. Think about data like text or vision or audio. We couldn't utilize that previously because of the format or the scale, but now you can do things like use AI to process this data and determine better customer segmentation or content that's going to resonate more across your customer segments in the preferred channels of your customers. So for instance, we have a retailer who's fully integrated their product catalog with their customer profiles, right? So now that what they can do is they can surface up personalized recommendations in real time as customers are chatting with an AI agent about what they need. So this is very cool and something that you could think about as well. How would I apply that to our business? The second area is all around boosting your velocity, right? By talking with data. So a lot of us are probably in an environment now where we're operating in a way where data is siloed. We might have to, be waiting on other teams to deliver data to us that is incomplete, or it requires us to go back and resubmit requirements. And by the time you get the data that you need, the delay means you've missed out on that window of opportunity. Or you might be in a scenario where you just have so much data in the system and you don't know where to start, right? And you can't get to what you need when you need it. So now the way that we're leveraging AI is we are empowering businesses to uncover and act on insights to improve their go-to-market and customer experiences. So thinking about how this is applied, we have an FMCG customer who is looking into things like customer sentiment, which was something that they couldn't do previously. It was too difficult to analyze. But now they're getting a pulse on their brand from customers, distilling that into some key themes, and then acting on that at the store level. The third area is around supply issues. So I mentioned my sister previously, challenges that they're having around global supply chain. Being able to better manage inventory and forecast is becoming increasingly critical for retail, especially with added global pressures that we're facing. So one thing that we're doing with AI is we're working with a beverage company, and they're using AI to improve their buying process, right? So when they interact with their suppliers, we're making sure that any purchases are taking place at the best time for the best price. And we're also extending that to areas like improving the customs experience, or things like compliance documentation to reduce errors and speed up shipping. So, when you're dealing with really thin margins, and there's a lot of costs associated with how you're moving that product, you want to make sure that you're maximizing your bottom line. The fourth area, empowering retail associates. This is really a really interesting one, because being able to put the right information into the hands of your retail associates when they need it is crucial. So some of our retail customers have very specific and detailed product information that takes a long time to learn and retain, and then be able to confidently and successfully share that with customers to make a sale. So if you think about our customers like luxury goods makers, like jewelers, for instance, there's a lot of information they need to know about stone cut quality, sourcing, things like this. And that information is difficult to learn and then be able to employ successfully. So the way that we're looking at AI to help with scenarios like this is being able to better enable your employees, your frontline staff, or non-technical employees with the power of things like prompts. So the information is surfaced to them in real time, right? And it's helping with making better responses, but also things like cost savings when you think about, just-in-time training that can be delivered to those members of staff. The fifth area here is around content generation. And this is a massive win we've seen, especially for product description generation. Probably everyone's had the experience where you've spent, hundreds, or some of our customers spend thousands of hours generating product descriptions, which isn't adding a lot of value for the business. But what we can do is we can use AI to automate that process, right? Write product descriptions for you, and then your teams can reinvest that time in bigger creative projects that will make more of a difference to the business, right? That's what we're trying to drive to, is improving the value that you get and the results that you can generate. And it's also going to provide like a differentiation in the market. If you think about all those hours you might spend generating content that isn't, moving the needle really, it's going to help you to gain more of an edge across your competition. And of course, there's always more. So, I put a plus in here. There's lots of ways you can apply AI. So one of our customers, for instance, has a contact center. And what they're doing is they're able to use generative AI to provide their service agents with things like documents, policies and procedures, training, coaching, feedback, this type of thing in the moment. And for one of our customers, they implemented this to reduce their response times for customer support. And what it meant was they were able to shave about 2 minutes off call handling time, serve about an additional 1,000 customers each week, and improve customer satisfaction by 25%. And what that meant was it resulted in an estimated annual savings of $5 million. So these are the kind of wins, like big wins, that will finance your entire AI investment, right? From that one project, they're now able to roll it out across many different areas of the business, to optimize their operations, to improve the customer experience. So just having that initial, use case or requirement can lead to a lot of big things for your company. And overall, this is how we're seeing AI being used, right? Like blending digital and physical shopping to create a more engaging customer journey, paired with a more efficient and sustainable model for retail that gives you that edge over the competition. So we have customers who are already on their way. And if 2023 was a year of experimentation and prototyping, 2024 is the year of moving to production and scale, right? Ramping up what that is. And this is happening locally in Australia and New Zealand as well. We're seeing a lot of AI capabilities to improve efficiency and productivity. And now brands are starting to see, okay, I can also leverage that and extend that to help with our customers, maximizing our sales, improving revenue outcomes. And when we look at it, there are a lot of different use cases that can be explored in the value chain, right? And we've got some representation here for our retail companies in blue, also for consumer goods companies in red, and then a mix with the green. But this is a way where you can think about how you can ideate and employ your own uses of AI to best maximize results. Okay, so there's a lot of potential, yes, but where do we start? And I'm a big believer that any use of our tech in our business has to be about solving a business problem, right? It needs to be grounded in your business, the challenge you're trying to solve, not tech for the sake of tech itself. What we should be doing is looking at, okay, what are the different areas of the business that are experiencing challenges, and how can we potentially leverage AI to address those issues? For instance, is there a need to improve the customer experience? Or are we looking at improving productivity or potentially generating more content? Where do we get started? So each of these areas is going to have potential, different potential solutions that you can explore, and each will have value that AI can generate for the business. So always start with the problem, because that's going to be the best way that we can then inform our decisions later on. When we're looking at exploring those different problems, it's great to ask a lot of questions. Don't keep anything off limits, because everyone's going to have different approaches and different ways that they tackle AI in their business. But I really suggest for everyone to keep open to ideas and ask a lot of questions. How are we going to kick off our AI exploration? And who's going to do what? Which team is going to be starting off? And what problem are we solving here specifically? Anything you can do to improve and narrow the focus for a very tight proof of concept is going to help to drive a better deployment and also results for your AI program. Other things to look at, are we set up to deliver on this? Do we have an understanding of exactly what we want to achieve and the people to do it? So have a good think, have an ideation session with your teams to understand and answer some of these questions, right, to narrow that focus. So the second step is we need to make sure that we have all of our foundations in place. So we've got 4 different areas to look at. The first one being your overall strategy, right? So how is AI aligning with your organizational and data strategy? And do we have the right guardrails in place for this? What is the role of people in the deployment of AI? And if you're not sure here, or if you're stuck, please have a look at something like Microsoft's responsible AI principles. That's what we use in order to design our own approach to AI. And that could provide a lot of help for customers. Things like being transparent, embedding trust in the system is something that should be considered as a first step. The next is we want to make sure that we have a strong business case in place because we're going to need to get this signed off by the CFO. So that's what they're going to need to see is what's the business case for our project and the ROI to get this across the line. So before I gave an example about a project that justified a customer's entire AI investment, and it doesn't need to be something sophisticated. You might even be able to get away with back of the napkin calculations using your knowledge of the business, thinking about, if we achieve like an X% uplift on a certain metric, it's going to result in Y for whatever the output is in terms of cost or sales. And if you do get stuck and you're thinking, I'm not sure how to apply this information, Microsoft, we have some information on ROI for applying AI or different pieces of our tech. So that's something we're happy to help with. There's a lot of information floating around that you're able to leverage. And so that would be great because then you can personalize it for your own business. The third area is around change management. we want to make sure that as we're going through this, that we're bringing everyone along. It's not just something happening in isolation. We want to make sure that we have the feedback loops in place, and there's different like a team who's managing this process to help embed AI in the organization, right? So that it's not just that AI project that's happening over here. It's the AI that we use every day to become more productive, efficient, and improve the customer experience for our customers. The last area is around governance. So, of course, we want to make sure, are we employing AI in a compliant and responsible way? Again, those responsible AI principles are going to really help to guide you if you're unsure of any uses of the AI or how it should be deployed, because we want to develop it responsibly in ways that warrant a lot of trust from our users. And through all of this, education and training is going to underpin everything you do with AI and as you develop literacy at the company. So it's something that, as you're going through, to be cognizant of and make sure that, yes, the team is empowered to leverage AI in the best way. We're taking advantage of all the support from our vendors, our partners, to make it a success in our business. And this leads us to the third step, which is around data, my favorite topic. So AI loves data, but if your data is a mess, it's going to impair your ability to compete and deliver value. So that brings us into the third step around having the right technology. And I think, I love tech and I love data, but I think that's the right order. It needs to come after grounding it in your business and making sure that it's aligned to your strategy and you've got the business case in place, right? It's not just tech for the sake of tech, because someone likes a certain product or they've heard something. It needs to really be grounded in your business to solve your business problems. So having the right tech is essential in this era of AI, because your AI outputs are only as strong as your data inputs. And when you look at the tech to harness that data and deliver on AI, you need to start with your team. Who are they? What are the roles they play? What do they need to deliver, right? Because each of these team members is going to have multiple responsibilities and activities that they need to perform, right? Starting with your data engineer, going through to your scientists, analysts, your data citizens, whether those are business users or decision makers, and then also your data stewards who are ensuring the robustness of your data and data standards for the organization. So Microsoft and CluedIn and others have already built a lot of engines to perform the activities that your data team is going to need to perform. But it's likely that they're performing those activities in different areas. They might have siloed, duplicate, poor quality, incomplete data, or they're dealing with integration and interoperability challenges in systems that you might have replicated, and you're spending more on them than you need to. And because teams and activities are naturally going to overlap, the way that Microsoft approaches this is to provide a way to work together in the same space, operating seamlessly with one copy of your data across any cloud, whether it's Microsoft, Amazon, Google. And we're making sure that we're doing it in a way where it's unified. So that's what Microsoft Fabric was created for. This is an all-in-one unified analytics platform. And each engine is running in the same open standard format to simplify that experience for users and bring everyone together into that shared operating space on the same data on all the different roles in your team. And then running over this data, you have oversight in terms of your data governance from Microsoft Purview, and also your master data management from CluedIn, right? This is really important to making sure that you have the ability to govern this correctly and have the quality of that data. So bringing these together is a very powerful formula, because as you roll out your AI experiences, Microsoft Fabric, Purview, and CluedIn are going to make sure that your data is in the best shape it can be. So Fabric's giving you that platform to unify your data and analytics experiences. Purview with the governance, and CluedIn is accelerating that time to insight and value. And this is what's going to enable you to really deliver on your objectives. And the easiest way to get started is to dive right in. Start with identify a small workload and go from there. You work with a lot of talented, dedicated people, and together you're going to be able to build AI into your projects so that it drives innovation and a sustained competitive advantage for your business. We've seen it with our customers. We're continuing to see it, and I really encourage you to get started and have a look. So that's all from me for the time being. I wanted to hand over to Tim to dive into the day-to-day of data management. And Tim, you've got a good demo for us today.
Sure do. Just before I start that, I'd like to echo a couple of just really important parts that Bobby highlighted. Number one, slide 14 and 15, anchor this with the business. Because I can guarantee you will be able to do some amazing things with AI, and you'll have great pilots and great POCs, and everyone will just think, this is such amazing tech. And then if it's not anchored to some type of business metric, you have to realize in these big businesses, there are, this is where projects die. And so anchoring it first in the business, I would just echo that as such an important thing. The next thing I'd like to echo from what Bobby said is that, he brought up these kind of milestones in technology like mobile and internet. And in hindsight, go back and kind of think, should I get onto the internet? Should we invest in the internet? And right now in hindsight, we're both laughing because it's so obvious. This is the same thing. And so Bobby's input is exactly what I would give as well, is get started right now and iterate, because it is an iterative type of technology where you'll try it. It won't work the first time. And then you tweak a little bit, it did it. And then when you start to use it in large amounts of data, you'll find these examples and exceptions where it didn't iterate, handle those situations and move on. It is a technology that's designed for that. And I would argue Fabric, I would argue the modern kind of data warehouse push with lake houses, they're all pushing us in this direction of just take these small little chunks off and iterate. You don't need to do those big bang projects anymore because that's just too much cognitive load sometimes to try and hit this brick wall of, I've got to design a huge data warehouse model, and only once we've done that, we can all fit the Lakehouse came in and said, let's take an iterative approach. AI and large language models are doing the same. And also, this is CluedIn's approach to MDM. So I'm going to walk you through some of the kind of day-to-day data management practices based off some of the input that Bobby gave here. And I'm also going to start with a little bit of a personal anecdote as well. Bobby gave the example of his sister working in the fashion industry. Mine's not as exciting, but I would argue in some shape or form, we've all been kind of affected and experienced and been on the kind of end of some type of data management issue in the retail and consumer space, whether we know it or not. And that could either be a package sent to the wrong address, so you have to go and pick it up from the post office. It could have been a package delayed because, maybe the same problem, wrong address that it was sent back to, they realized it bounced, it has to come back, and things like this. My example that I've got is a little bit more of a positive for me, in that the year was 1997 and I was 12 at the time. And it was around November, so getting close to Christmas time. And the budget that Santa had for me was 60 Australian dollars. And Monkey Island 3, I was a big fan of Monkey Island 1 and 2, played it a lot on the PC. And it was $99.99 retail price. Okay, so I realized I'm not going to get that. I visited a Toys R Us in Brisbane at a place called in Mount Gravatt, and there's a big kind of what we call Westfield shopping centre there called Garden City. And I walked in, I went up to the PC game area, and I noticed someone had put a price of $9.99 on Monkey Island 3. And I thought, oh, okay, well, someone might have just put another sticker onto it. There's a it can't be true. So then I decided to, okay, let's take it up and see. So I take it up to Toys R Us front counter, put it on, they scan it through. Lo and behold, $9.99. Now, Bobby, I'm married happily. I have 2 children. But this still was probably the best day I've ever had in my entire life, and probably forever will be as well. So good for me, but I decided to look at the annual report for Toys R Us. And there's lots of these available online. You can check it out yourself. And I decided to take what was the most recently published and available, which was 2022. And just so you know, Toys R Us, the brand, it's still in Australia. So I'm not sure how it's going in the US, but it's definitely still all around Australia. They reported in this year 24.3 million Australian dollars in losses. And some of this was to do with things like broken stock, and some of it was to do with, you know, people breaking the toys in store and claiming it on insurance and writing it off as a loss. But then this was also coupled with data management issues. In addition to this, they talk about in the annual report of 3.5 million Australian dollars a year being spent on managing a customer database. Okay, that seems pretty significant, that cost. What are they doing? Well, they're probably having to fix duplicate records, and you know, people are entering in customer data in all different shapes and sizes from the different stores, and there's the need to consolidate and fix it. You can imagine what they want. I want a single view of our customers, one single list, and you'd be probably surprised how many companies cannot achieve this. It also mentions in the annual report about a major ERP migration. So Bobby talked about the whole supply chain of data. Well, you know, I'm glad that we are modernizing the ERP, but if we're sending around bad data, it just exacerbates the situation, right? So these are some of the core reasons why data management is necessary, but the way that AI is going to change data management in fixing these problems, you'll see, has fundamentally changed as well. So AI is already, to Bobby's point, it's disrupted for a couple of years on the front end. You know, in your websites and digital channels, you are getting customized search results. You are getting customized baskets. You are getting suggestions. All of these are already using these technologies. So nothing new there, but of course, an elevation of quality, definitely with the large language models. What we're talking more about is behind the scenes. So the data that we fuel into the AI, to Bobby's point, if we don't have that amazing foundation to guarantee that the data we're delivering to these projects is governed, is passing regulation, they're all the kind of defensive parts of data management. But what about the offensive parts? Like, it's enriched, it's standardized, so it's easy just to pick up and start working with. What about the whole idea that actually we might be able to embed point of sales, POS data from either public or data brokers to tell us more about how much it's selling in different regions. These are all ways to improve the value of data. So it's not just about getting value out of data, it's about improving the actual value of data, giving it a bigger chance to actually go out and generate insights. And so, you know, Bobby, you mentioned a couple of technologies, and I'll mention a couple as well. One of the reasons why you're probably on this webinar with us is because you've invested in a lot of these things. You have invested in a lakehouse. You're on Fabric. You are on the best of breed technology. You've built an amazing team of stewards, citizens, engineers, analysts, architects. You've hired the best talent in the market. You've invested in BI. You've invested in reporting. You've invested in machine learning early, and now you're investing in AI. But it still feels like something is missing. I mean, I don't think a lot of us can kind of say, when I go find data within my business, I just pick it up and I start using it and I trust it and it's great quality. I look at it and I'm just so amazed. It's just no one's feeling that. There is this chasm that exists. And you might say, oh, that's convenient. So I'm guessing the little void is filled by MDM. And the answer is no, it's not. The void is filled by the fact that more often than not, we aren't bringing these data citizens and experts on the actual data into that supply chain of data. That a lot of the time, these projects are still very necessarily put into IT. And that's great. We need that. We definitely need that. But the big part that's missing right now is, how do I bring in Sarah, who is she goes around to the different stores and she knows the toys and she knows the brands and she knows that a particular Barbie is not going to be $600. She can spot those issues. Whereas me in engineering, I go, well, who am I to correct a $600 Barbie? I don't know. I'm not the expert on the toys. How do we bring Sarah in and let her play a role in this supply chain of data as well? So it turns out, roughly 30 years ago, MDM came up with this novel idea, which was we should really start to bring the business and IT together. The idea was fantastic. They realized 30 years ago, you need to bring Sarah in. And if you fast forward all those years to some of the most recent statistics from analysts on this, and it varies, let's say there's a 5% variation from analyst to analyst. But Gartner said in all these years, 75% of these projects failed. They failed. And a lot of it comes back to something Bobby echoed, which is the inability to tie this back to business value. In that we can clean data, hopefully I can make it easy for you, but if we're actually not tying it back to some core business metric, it doesn't matter what the technology can do. Now, it just so helps when the technology does help. And so if we take a look at kind of the anatomy of what went wrong, anyone that's done and worked on a data warehouse before will look at this and say, this sounds familiar, really familiar. In that, what we used to do in MDM was we would buy these technologies, and one of the first things we would actually do is turn these technologies off. And the reason why is, before we could start, we needed to somehow figure out what's our end goal? What do we need the data to look like? So what do we have? Well, we have products. Okay, good. We've got customers. Good. How do they relate to each other? Well, a customer purchases a product. Good progress, team. Great. That looks, but yeah, they also return them. Okay, let's put that in. What else do we have? Well, we have stock. Yeah, we have partners. We have vendors. And then you start to realize, I've got to fit all of that data into this world. And changing this world is not going to be easy because I've got all my data fitting in. So the idea of bringing on another data source and then seeing it and going, that doesn't look anything like this, you go, we have to do the remodeling again. You can start to see this was something similar that happened in the data warehousing space with the kind of classic upfront, let's build some dimension tables, let's build some fact tables, let's decide on a schema structure, let's go with star schema, let's go with Kimball, let's go with third normalized, all of these things, very technical, right? But the good thing is they are done in the IT team. So that's their specialty. You fast forward to the kind of modern Fabric approach, and they say, yeah, you have an option to either take the data warehouse approach that has been around for a while, but you've also got this lakehouse approach. And it says no need for an upfront model at all. This was the number one reason MDM failed. And it's not hard to see. It's that you were trying to somehow forecast what will our data look like for the next 5 years for us to get a good ROI. And let's just cross our fingers, it's always going to look like that. And the truth is, we all know that's not the case. And unfortunately, what happened, because of this, these tools got handed back to IT. I don't, what is a many-to-many table? And why do I need to know that? I'm Sarah and I know about toys. That's what you got me on this project for. They get handed back to IT and IT says, I've got Fabric. I've got Fabric. And that's a tool built for my skills to play my role on the supply chain of data. And then MDM goes, well, it didn't add value. And actually the core idea of value was always, no, Sarah needs to play her role. And this is why CluedIn takes a very different approach to MDM. And I would argue the best analogy is we see ourselves as the lakehouse approach of MDM. So all of this resulted in often a slow time to market where people would say, so do we have clean data yet? And we would say, yeah, we're still in the modeling phase. We're still trying to figure everything out. And, Bobby's example of the CFO sitting there going, that's not what I want to hear. I want to hear that on every week, you are adding this much value. But it's consistently over every week, I see this much value. And what I want to see is that if I put a little bit more budget in every week, I get that much in value. Consistent output of value. That's what we need to be able to deliver. And this is how CluedIn was designed. Now, of course, we stand on the shoulders of giants here in that we've integrated our technology stack with Microsoft. And so you've got this ecosystem of ways to be able to solve your challenges. But the important part to mention is, even though CluedIn does take a different approach to this, it still has all the elements you would want from an MDM system. The matching and the merging, fixing duplicate records, getting rid of unstandardized data, enrichment, audit trails of changes, putting in processes around data management, still has all of these elements to it. And most importantly, you would argue, okay, so MDM, we've been doing that for 30 years, 75% failure rate. So you're telling me that the main difference is the upfront modeling is not necessary, and that's what makes it more successful now. Well, it definitely helps. But I can tell you what's also helped bridge this gap is the integration with AI. And I'll give you a simple example. A lot of the time, these tools will say, you've got data quality issues, and you've got this engine, a rules engine, where you can just detect data quality issues if you want. So what are you wanting to detect? I want to detect if we've got proper ABN numbers on our stores or on our vendors or on our suppliers. Not a problem. Sarah, can you just put a regular expression right there for an ABN number? And Sarah goes, sorry, what? I play with Barbies all day and I could give you the whole range of Barbies, but why are you asking me to write some regular expression thing? And you start to realize what has helped with that gap. It's this. Because this allows you to instill your need in natural language, and it can be translated to the underlying technology that can say, well, in the end, I am actually going to run a regular expression, but I don't need you to give it to me. I just need you to tell me these should all be a valid Australian business number. And Copilot will happily say, not a problem. You'll see this in a moment as well. So final slide for me, standing on the shoulders of giants. One of the things I love about CluedIn's approach to MDM is that it is built on the Microsoft stack itself. So underneath it, it is built on the backbone of things like Azure Kubernetes Service, Azure SQL Server, Azure Redis, all of these different elements. And the luxury of this is customers of CluedIn get to wake up every day and they get to inherit all the innovation from Microsoft in these areas as well. But we also integrate with all of these different technologies such as Fabric, getting data in from Fabric, getting data out to Fabric, Microsoft Purview, the list goes on. So with that in mind, let's go to our demonstration. So here is the CluedIn platform. Multiple different ways to be able to get data in. And the use case we're going to walk through is a use case we actually run into quite often, which is I don't have a single list of all the products that we have. They're buried across multiple ERP systems, and one of them is SAP, and I need to bring in the SAP expert because all the column names are in German, and I need to do some translation and all of that. And we're going to solve the types of problems. At the end of this, we're going to consolidate and build a single list of our products across different sources of data. I'm going to drag and drop some files in. So I've got some product data from 2 different systems. So let's upload it to CluedIn and put it in a little staging environment. So I'm going to call this staging data. So this is kind of putting it in a safe space. We need to map this data into essentially a business domain. So we've uploaded our files. They're all processed. Let's go take a look at the first data set here. And we can see a nice preview of the data. I've got 25 products that I'm working with here. And I've got names, product IDs, types, prices, things like this. Typical things you'll see on product data. As I start to dive in, I can start to see that, okay, there does seem to be a couple of issues. First of all, it looks like the color, we are representing it sometimes differently. And that's not something I want to get out. It also looks like in some cases I'm missing some values. These are pretty typical data quality issues, and you'll see CluedIn fix it in a pretty typical way. But some of these issues are a little bit harder. For example, I've got the color and size missing. Oh, but it's over here in the name. How am I going to get that out and put it into the structured version? These are the kind of things we need to fix. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to map this into the CluedIn system. And all we need to do is decide on what type of data are we actually dealing with here. And we're dealing with some toys, okay? So the concept of a toy doesn't exist, but this is the kind of no upfront modeling that's needed in CluedIn. We can just build these things on the fly, and I don't really even need to analyze the data that much. I haven't even looked at the other file to figure out, oh, what column names overlap? What does that final table need to look like? We'll give it a nice little icon. Let's give it a robot, and we're going to give it a vocabulary. Think of this as like the structure of the toys, what attributes it has, and things like this. So I've got some data coming in. It's going to map it into this kind of name-spaced key, so toys.product name. And you can also see right now, everything is just text. Everything is just text. And this is the part I love. Do I have to go off and start to say, oh, no, you're a number. If you're not a number, you can't come in. And actually, this is how most MDM systems work. And you can imagine, I'm not going to be able to guess that. I'm not going to be able to guess that up front. And once again, we don't want to make this an IT problem. We want Sarah to fix these types of things. So we're going to map that data into the platform. We see a nice little lineage. And this is, believe it or not, Bobby and everyone kind of watching the webinar, even the act of moving away from files is a significant thing for companies. How much have we all heard these like, yeah, we're passing Excel sheets around to manage our data? Even this simple act of saying, you don't do that anymore. You upload once, and then you'll never have to pass around CSV files again. You've now got this place to be able to fetch the data. But we've got a lot more work we can do here. Now, because I chose the auto mapping, it should have already chosen the product name as the most appropriate name for the toys. It's also automatically detected, I think the product ID is the way to uniquely identify these different products. I'm going to click next, finish, and I'm going to now push these 25 products into the system. Okay, pretty easy, but I would say pretty irresponsible, because I've not done any pre-analysis. I've not done kind of like any pre-processing of the data. I've taken it as is. And this is the Lakehouse approach. Pull it in bronze, massage it along the way. Don't try to have this like big bang. No. Everything needs to be right before we actually can start onboarding the data. So now if we head over to our search, we see 25 records in the platform. We've got 25 toys right here. And there's our Nerf guns. There's our prices with data quality issues and everything, okay? So as we go down, we've still got those data quality issues, BLK, black, things like this. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to clean some of this data in quite a traditional manner. So I'm going to go over to CluedIn's cleaning studio, and we're going to say, fix the old way. Okay. I'm going to load these toys up, and it's now telling me what properties do we want to clean. I'm just going to load everything for now. So this is going to generate me for Sarah in this case, or the data steward in Bobby's slides. It's going to generate Sarah a safe space. She can work on and try to figure out like how to instill her business knowledge into the data. Anything she changes, she can roll back. Anything that she's not happy with, she doesn't have to submit. So it's a really safe space to be able to do this. And essentially, you can imagine if you've got a 30 million toys, you want to fix something once and you never want to fix it again. So it's nice that we'll get to clean this data, but I want these very deterministic things to say, I know how to handle that in the future. So for this, let me just clean up my canvas just a little bit. So let's go to 50 of these records at a time. And let's take something like the color. And apologies for all Australians with the spelling. So I'm going to group this color, and we can actually see over here, it's pretty easy to spot the issue. The challenge is, if this is a million variations, it's going to be really hard to actually figure out how to find them, how to fix them. And so that's where we can launch into what we call the clustering feature, where it starts to go off and using different techniques, it's going to start to suggest, I think all of these should be this. What do you think, Sarah? Well, I agree. So let's merge those together, close. And now it looks like, okay, I've been able to, let me let the dog out. It's just barking 1 second. Someone must be home or someone must be knocking at the door, either of those. So here, I've now cleaned in a very traditional way. I didn't use any AI, but it was still smart. It was still helping me determine these things that are suggestions for a data steward to go off and fix. So as I go and close this project down, I'm going to actually push these changes into the system. And the most important thing here is that I've actually asked it, based off what I just told you, can you generate business rules for me? Because these rules are basically the policies of data management for the business. So I'm going to confirm this, and this will do a couple of things. Number one, it's going to clean those records. Great. We've all got the same color for black now. We haven't, this is not rocket science that we're doing here. But the other thing that it's done is it's going to generate these business rules automatically for me. And once enabled, as I import the second data set, it has the same types of problems. It'll say, I know how to handle this. Don't worry. I've seen this before. I know what to do. You told me what to do. Fix once, never have to fix again. So let's go take a look at one of those rules. It's generated this a few seconds ago. Let's launch into it. Okay, so pretty easy to understand where the color is BLK, or the color is black lowercase, I've got an action to be able to turn it into what we want. Okay, good. So what I'm showing you here is kind of like what we had to do before. This is what we had to do before. We had to come up with these very strict rules and things like this. And it worked for lots of different cases. Unfortunately, there's lots of other problems with managing retail related data. You can't take the same approaches to. And this is where the AI comes in. So first of all, let's now onboard our second data set. This one's coming from SAP. And I would argue the first problem arises, which is Sarah's not an SAP expert. So what are those columns? Like what on earth are they supposed to refer to? Okay. So this is the SAP materials table. That's where you would store these types of things. But we've already created the concept of a toy, and I want to align with that same language. So I've either got to go to the SAP expert and match these things up, or I can launch into my Copilot. So CluedIn's Copilot, it's bring your own model. So to Bobby's, slides, this could be the latest model. It could be anything from Azure AI Studio, from Mistral to Llama to GPT-4 to GPT 3.5. And, the truth is the majority of these just do a fantastic job. It's really down to the kind of cost factor of which one would be most suitable for you. But of course, the latest is the greatest. It will always produce, essentially, generically speaking, it should always produce the better results. So here, I'm going to ask it to do something pretty crazy. I'm going to say, can you create a mapping from this data set we're looking at to our toys vocabulary we just created and toys entity type we just created? And what I'm wanting it to do is figure this stuff out for me. Which one's product ID? Which one's product name? Which one is the size? Which one is the color? Like, please help me. And so this guy comes back and it says, cool. So the material number, that should map to product ID. The material TX, your guess is as good as mine, should map into the product name. It turns out this is right, but this is pretty phenomenal. And the more data that you bring on, you have to realize often the stewards that are working with the data, they don't know the systems. They don't work with the systems that are actually bringing this data in. So if I, let's refresh this guy. If I go to my mapping, it's mapped those fields for me. And then there's another one in here. It says, well, actually, there was no match for this. And so this is volume. Okay, that concept doesn't exist yet. Okay, so what we can do is we can say, well, let's map the field. Here it says, should I just bring that on? And let's keep it in SAP words for now. We can always fix this later. But I'm going to add that property. I'm going to, what would you say? I'm going to append this to the model. Notice no modeling needed. No upfront modeling. I don't need to go talk to an IT team to say, can you add an extra column for a volume? Because we're going to onboard some data. Absolutely no need for that. And so once we go through here, let's just map that key there. Let's go to the next page. Let's choose the product name. Isn't it great now? I don't have to, SAP language is now gone. I'm now dealing with something that's so much more approachable for Sarah to be able to do. I'm going to use the product ID as the identifier. And before we map the data into the system, I just want to highlight as well, there's no overlap between these IDs. So I can't just go ID in that system equals that. They're completely different identifiers. In fact, the only thing I can go on is things like the name of the product, the type of product, and things like this. So we're going to push this data now into the platform. We've got about 5 minutes left in the demo, so apologies for running over just a little bit. Now those are in, and so if we go over and search within our data right now, and head to here, let's filter by our toys. And lo and behold, we've got 50 toys, 25 from each system. This is horrible. This is not what we want, because there's 25. There's actually 25. It's just that there's no easy way to bring this data together. And because it's got these data quality issues like the color's missing and the size and it's spelled differently, someone's got to fix this stuff to give it a better opportunity to figure out that there's an overlap. So for this, let's make it more possible for the engine to actually do its job. Because where was it? It was red, I think. Yeah, so remember this car? We've got red and small Hot Wheels, and we're missing the color here. So when we're trying to do comparisons, I would like the color to actually be there for the matching. So how would we go about solving this traditionally? Well, I'll ruin the surprise. It's really hard because there's no guarantee if it even has it in it. It doesn't, no one knows where it went in the order. Is it at the end? Is it an acronym? Is it some odd code, a hex code? Or all of these things are reasons why this is really hard to solve with traditional approaches. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to go over and I'm going to create a brand new business rule. This one is going to be called use LLM for color extraction. And first of all, we're going to specify what type of data we want this to run on. So this type of data equals to our toys. And then we're going to add an action, give it a name. And the action is we want to set a value with AI. What we want to do is pass in the product name. We want to spit out the answer to the color. We can specify what type of model that we want to use here. I'm going to use not the latest, but still a pretty good one. I'm going to use GPT 3.5 here to do the actual prompts and lookups and analysis. And this is the most important part here. This is where Sarah gets to use her natural intent to say something like, given the product, given the product name of insert something, can you please extract out the color and just return only the name of the color? Okay. Here is where I want to put in toys.product name. So effectively what I'm doing here is the equivalent of me going to something like this, typing this, but getting rid of this and putting red and small Hot Wheels car, something like this. Well, I also think I put it in quotes. So that's the equivalent of what we're doing, but we don't want to do that every time. We want to be able to run this against a large amount of data, okay? And in a way, we want this to be automated. So here, I'll just put these in quotes just to make it a little bit more obvious to the... And guess what? You might get this prompt wrong the first time. You probably will. I've had some odd situations where it'll do it for thousands of records, and then in 1002 it says question mark, question mark. Okay, and then you look at the value and you go, the color is there. And so you go back to your prompt and you say, and never return question mark, question mark. And it worked. So you can see how like it's a real iteration thing that you need to do here. So I'm going to save this guy and let's just run this against one of these records. So let's go to red small car. And let's head to the properties. Notice no color, no color. Let's just run this one record through that rule. You got a color. So not so amazing on one record, but once you start to run this in bulk, and that was all just done with a prompt. No technical, no code, no Python, no scripting, no SQL. This is all done by Sarah by just instilling her business intent into the data. Okay, so we've got ways to be able to use AI to clean up and get structure out of unstructured data. We've got to fix our final problem, which is we want to actually have a single view of our different products that we've got here. So I'm going to go create a project called Get Rid of Duplicate Toys. Here, I'm just going to filter this down by just the toys that we're wanting to build a single list of. And in here, we can do our matching rules. So in here, let's just start with a really naive one, just in the interest of time. And let's just say where the name of the toy has a 90% similarity. So that here, and let's go next, add rule, and let's go off and generate those results. Now, while I'm doing that, there was this really weird thing that I saw in the data before, in that when I took a look at the product name, I'll need your interaction on this one, Bobby. When I click on this and I go to all values, can you spot something that's super odd in here?
I can't spot it, but then I'm not sure what I'm looking for.
But this is great. This is great. Because, like, how do you spot a data quality issue in a bunch of toys? Well, I'll ruin the surprise for you by using our Copilot. And I'll say,
I can see,
yeah.
I'm seeing at the bottom.
Okay, so I think you're right. But if this is a million, how are you going to find this? There's no pattern. There's no pattern to it, right? And there's all these ways we can have IT help us with detecting issues that have patterns in it. Fantastic. But when these kind of things come up, this is, I'm pretty sure, what you spotted.
It sounds delicious, though.
It does. And good luck to the child that gets that for Christmas as well. But also what's interesting is, notice it also picked up that red and small Hot Wheels, this is not the consistent convention for this, right? So now we can say, great, can you create me a golden record rule for the first example and tag it with bad toy name? So even for building these rules, just state your intent. So we didn't actually find the data quality anomaly here. The engine helped us find it. Now it's going to help us create the rule. And if we click on this rule and go over here, I think that did a great job. When the product name equals Benet sauce, let's activate this. Never happens again. So we've taken something from AI and we've instilled it and codified it. So this runs without AI now, right? So you can see how you can build and detect these data quality issues that are always hard to detect. Final thing we'll do is we got back our results for our toys. It looks like if we take a look at, I don't know, something like Barbie here, This is now saying, hey, you imported data from 2 different systems, and I've been able to match on the product name, but also I'll give you the full list of, here are 4 records I think are the same. And you can see all pink, all same price, different product IDs. Well, that's natural because they're coming from different systems. Maybe someone's put the product in twice. This is natural stuff that happens with data management, but just so much easier to be able to do these more complex issues now that we've got large language models to help us with this. So with that in mind, I appreciate everyone for attending. Bobby, thanks for joining us. There are questions we've got coming through, but we'll leave them for answering after the call just due to time. Bobby, thanks so much for being with us. And yeah, everyone have a good day.
Thank you. Appreciate it.